I got nothing. I'm just here for you.
All righty. First one from Justin Guerrero.
Coach, good morning. Thanks for your time again. Good to see you once more. Last season, I know you like to use the phrase quality depth just to kind of describe your bench and the assets you had on your team behind the starting five. And just curious, at this point in time now, maybe compared to last year, how would you compare last year's quality depth with this year's depth?
Well, number one, we got quality. There's no doubt about it. The difference between this year and last year is some of those guys that we were bringing off the bench, in those depth kind of positions were veterans. Eli was a sophomore. Lucas was a senior. I mean, we were bringing a lot of experience off the bench. This year, our depth is going to be based on a lot of younger guys, and so it's still quality because we got some talented guys. There's no doubt about it. It's just they're a little bit younger, and so the experience isn't there, and therefore you get more mistakes, you get more maybe inconsistencies, but. We got guys that can make plays. I can tell you that they're quality players. So, I'm one of those coaches. I use 13 scholarships every year. I don't carry 10 or 11 like some schools. That's why we're not a big transfer, school, not a big grad transfer school. We develop our depth, and hopefully we can develop it as the year goes on. And what makes this year, Justin, so different than past years with the compressed schedule is normally with 13 non-conference games, everybody makes fun of or poo-poos some of those bye games or some of those early games against maybe teams from lower conferences. But those games are so critical in developing depth because you can get away with that with some younger guys and give them some minutes and let them play through some mistakes and learn from things. Whereas when it's a compressed schedule, you open up with South Dakota State, guess what? We don't have that luxury. You play K-State in the second game, you do not have that luxury of developing that depth because you don't have, inferior opponents. We got real opponents that we got to beat.
Next question from Pat.
Hey, Coach. Good morning. Maybe kind of along those lines with the depth, was wondering if you've had a chance to sink your teeth into the eligibility relief measure passed last week. Will it give you a little bit of flexibility? Like, for instance, if one of those young guys is struggling in November, but lighting it up in February, you can play them and not ruin a whole year of eligibility?
Absolutely. No, in fact, Pat, we finally, talked to our team about that. Let's see, I'm trying to get my days straight here. I think we talked to them about that on Saturday. And I know the players have kind of read stuff. Obviously, things are out there. And so we kind of broke it down to them. And I told them, what I'm going to do, I usually sit down and meet with our guys individually, multiple times throughout the year. But then my next individual meetings with guys will probably come here in the next couple of weeks. And that's when I'll be able to sit down and talk with guys individually about what that looks like for them. And, but I think especially for our freshmen, because freshmen are usually the guys you're looking at redshirting. We don't have to worry about that this year. And they don't have to worry about it. It's to me, it's a very, very fortunate situation for our players, given the unfortunate nature of COVID and not being able to play with fans in the stands and those sorts of things. We know the downsides to what we're going through, but the upside for student athletes is, this is not going to hurt your eligibility and burn a year. And so for redshirt candidates, you're exactly right. They may be struggling in November, not getting minutes, but hell, they may be starting by the time February comes around. You just don't know. So that gives them real incentive.
Another one from Justin.
Coach, a couple practices in, what are you seeing from Eli just in terms of his progression from last year? And do you kind of foresee him drifting into the territory of being able to become maybe a bit more of a regular offensive threat to match what he does defensively for you guys?
Eli has worked as hard on his jump shot as any player we've had, over this last off season. I mean, he's gotten a lot of reps up. His release looks really good. Obviously, the numbers, we've only got We went hard today, but today was more of a putting offense in, putting out of bounds plays in, putting some sets in. So we didn't go live today, but looking at our stats in practice and the way he's shooting the ball, he is shooting it in a position where we want him to take open shots, and he's capable now of making open shots. I believe that. Now, a lot of that has to do with, his reps and his confidence level. But what I want Eli to really, really dial into is to be what this team needs on the perimeter. We've got McKinley Wright, who I would consider a defensive stopper. We need a second defensive stopper. And is that going to be Keyshawn? Is it going to be Eli? Is it going to be one of the younger guys? Is it going to be Deshaun? Who's it going to be? Maddox? But I think Eli has the ability to be that lockdown defender and a guy that can make open shots and can make a play off the bounce. We know how athletic he is, but defensively, he can be a game changer if he chooses to be.
Next one from Pat.
Coach, with kind of looking at filling the rebounding void left behind with Tyler, how much of that falls on Evan, and how much of a better rebounder can he be than we've seen his first 2 seasons?
Well, hopefully, we know we got 9 or 10 rebounds a game that are up for grabs. It's a matter of who's going to get them. And the biggest thing for me is I just don't want our opponents getting them. I don't care if it's Evan. I don't care if it's Dallas. I don't care if it's Deshaun. I don't care who it is. But so again, it doesn't fall on one guy, but certainly if I'm Evan Batty and I look at Tyler Bay being gone, I say there's 9 rebounds a game I can go get. And that's one area where I want our players, I encourage our players to be selfish. I don't want them to be selfish in any other aspect of their game other than rebounding the ball. So Evan is one guy, but it's multiple guys. Jariah Horn needs to be a really good rebounder for us this year. Dallas Walton needs to up his game. Deshaun needs to up his game. Our guards, McKinley, Keyshawn, Maddox, big wings, need to up their game. So it's a multiple guys, Pat. And right now, I can't tell you who that's going to be until we start hooking it up in games.
Justin.
Which we talked to Dallas a couple of days ago, and he indicated that the brace is gone. He's not wearing that brace anymore in practice, and he doesn't plan to for the season. And just in your eyes, just how big is that? And really for Dallas trying to make a return to his redshirt freshman form when he was squaring up with the likes of DeAndre Ayton on a nightly basis.
Yeah, it's key, because to me, as long as you have a brace on, you're not full. You're not ready to go. Because there's a mental aspect of that injury that you're not over yet. And I don't discourage the brace. To me, that is totally up to Dallas or whoever the student athlete is in terms of whether they wear it or don't wear it. That's an individual choice. But as a coach, I know when that brace is not there, I know they're mentally 100%. And obviously they're physically 100%. He was physically 100% last year. I don't think he was mentally 100% last year. And that's, look, with good reason. And that's not a knock on Dallas whatsoever. Because he's a mentally tough kid. You don't have three ACLs and come back from all 3 of them if you're not mentally tough. And he's 7 foot tall. So it takes, it just takes a little bit longer. And but Dallas is a key X factor for this year's Buff team, without a doubt.
All right, 2 more. First, Neil.
Hey, Coach, just wondering, have you had a backcourt with 2 guys like McKinley and Keyshawn in the same backcourt? And what kind of opportunities does that offer?
The last time I had that, Neil, was at Northern Colorado. We had Will Figures, the son of the great Buff Dion Figures, and Devin Weitzel. That was a pretty dynamic backcourt. 2, first team all conference type guards, and that could both really score it and shoot it. Different players, but really both very effective and played off each other really, really well. So when we had Devin and Will in the backcourt, we won 24 games. And if Devin doesn't, break his foot, in the in the conference tournament, you know, that's probably an NCAA tournament team, in my opinion. So Keyshawn and Ken can play off each other. I think it's really going to allow Ken to get off the ball a little bit and be more of a scorer for us. I mean, we know he can score the ball, but when he's scoring the ball from off the ball rather than on the ball all the time, I think it's good for our team. So that's going to be key. And I think Eli is another guy, and Dominic Clifford. We got multiple ball handlers this year. Deshaun is a guy that can play with the ball in his hands and allow McKinley to play off the ball a little bit. So I like the ball handling nature of this team right now. I mean, we still have a few too many turnovers. I don't know if that's because it's early in practice or we're out of shape or we're not good ball handlers or passers, but I hope it's not the latter two categories, because if it is, we'll be back with the ball in McKinley's hands a lot.
And last question, Coach, from Pat.
Coach, just wondering, with no exhibitions and scrimmages in this preseason, will you do more kind of inter-squad type competitions than you typically do in the preseason?
Yeah, Pat, great question. We already are. I mean, we've played more 5-on-5 in the first, 4 or 5 days of practice than we ever have, because of exactly what you're saying. Like, we have to get in game type situations in practice, and it's imperative that our players mentally approach those scrimmages in practice like they would an exhibition game or a close scrimmage against somebody else. Now, that's easier said than done because it takes mental toughness and focus to do that. But yes, to answer your question, we have to do a lot more 5-on-5 and putting our guys in game time situations that have impacts on them. So the penalties for not executing a thing and something in practice need to be a little bit more severe and eye-popping and like, oh boy, I really want to win this scrimmage or else. So the rewards or the consequences need to be maybe grown in value a little bit, if you will.
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll let you go, Coach. Appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you guys.